Hello. Yeah, I know it's almost lunch, right? I'll keep this brief. Please bear with me. I will be talking about more technical stuff here, but I'll try not to bore you guys too much, okay? Then we'll have lunch. I heard from Mickey the food is good, so. All right. Yeah, so you can see the title of my talk is Developer Experience, how BillEase balances speed, quality, and usability of Python microservices. Now, as requested by the developers, by the organizers rather, there will be no mention of AI, ChatGPT in this talk, I promise. There's a lot of talks today and tomorrow dedicated to AI, so not this one. I personally will keep AI or ChatGPT out of the speech, okay? It wrote the rest of the speech anyway. But now, before I go ahead and start, I'd like to remind my team here, if you look at the BillEase booth over there, to send a signal or stop me should I say anything, should I divulge too much insider information, okay, about our tech stack. Our CEO is here today, and I'd hate it if he finds out exactly how well we code, okay? So please. So what's in this for you, right? What even is developer experience? Raise the hands here, anyone who know what developer experience is all about? Right, okay, I see a few here. Come on, BillEase, everyone should be raising their hands. There we go, great. So, developer experience is more often than not an afterthought for a lot of tech companies. I think a lot of you guys can relate to this. As soon as your company or team, right, starts to get traction, either you start expanding quickly or onboard a lot more clients than you're used to, right, growth becomes quite unruly. A system that makes the team, right, and each individual contributor happy is paramount. This is the core of the BillEase developer philosophy, right? To be at the forefront of everything that'll make your life easier. Okay, so let's start by defining real quick, right, what developer experience is, because this covers a lot of topics, right? And I won't go too deep into each one of them, but I'd like to show you guys how we do things in BillEase and how it'll make you happy if you come work for us. So, I like to talk about the 5 things here that you can see and how these 5 things revolve or improve our developer experience. Okay, so we have 5 things. We have our repository, like what an actual repository in BillEase looks like. Don't worry, Georg, I omitted a lot of stuff, so it should be safe. Our Python version, I heard a lot of talks earlier about what Python version to use, which one is stable, which one isn't, right? Our pre-commit, right? Testing and upkeep, right? Really short topics. Let's go. So let's start with the repository. Quite simple, right? This repository, this is what a sample microservice repository looks like in BillEase. Of course, it has a lot of dot files in there, but this is the main directory. I guess a lot of you guys will be familiar with this, okay? Just from the folder, can you guess what the framework is? If you guess it right, you get a free desk mat. Anyone? Yeah, this is actually Fast API, okay? A lot of the repositories or services in BillEase are written in Fast API, and we have these folders. Okay, so just real quick, for the app, I guess this is obvious to everyone. This is just the everything that Fast API needs to run, right? Your models, your controllers, and everything. DB, all our SQL files, right? I guess we go against the grain here by not going the ORM route. Fast API itself, and I guess all you guys are more used to like Django, ORM, or SQL Alchemy. We don't use that, right? Long story short, we got burned by ORMs, so we try to stick with something more flexible and something more that we can control. So those are direct SQL files, and we just use a query builder to mask them. We have our library. Everything that that doesn't live in app goes here, right? Requirements. Everyone is familiar with the requirements.txt, right? in BillEase, we have 3 files for this. We have the base requirements, we have the dev requirements, and we have the test requirements. And all these files, they just inherit from each other, right? So if you're a developer setting up your repository, when you do a pip install, you just install the dev, and that installs tests, and that installs base, right? And base, everything that's necessary for the app, right? Tests, obviously, and util. All of those sorting or sanitizing of strings, whatever, all those go there, okay? Python version. Okay, as you can see, there's already a hint there. Our Python virtual environment is 3.11. Is anyone familiar with the app or the service used here, which is PyEnv? Anyone uses PyEnv? Wow, such a few people. How do you set up your Python environment? You just use the OS Python? You just use the OS Python? Okay, anyone here uses JavaScript then? Okay, are you guys familiar with NVM? Right? So it's just like NVM, right? It manages your Python versions for you, and not just Python versions. It also manages virtual environments. Right? So you can see how easy it is to set up a virtual environment in 3.11 and dedicate it to your microservice, for example, there, right? So as you cd into your directory, it's automatically invoking your virtual environment. Okay, next is the pre-commit. Is anyone familiar with pre-commit? Has anyone actually used pre-commit? Why is there bias on this side? Like, what's up with this side? Okay, go ahead, yeah. All right, so pre-commit, as the name implies, right? This is actually BillEase's first step in ensuring that our code stays consistent and, well, pretty, right? Pre-commit is actually written in Python, but you can use it in any service that you have that has Git in it. It installs Git hooks in your repo, specifically the pre-commit hook. So every time before you're about to commit, so as you execute git commit, this gets triggered and basically makes sure that everything in your code is, well, all good before it gets committed, right? And there's also already a sneak peek of what we use here. Quite basic. I've seen a lot more intricate pre-commit, but for us, we just use all these, right? We just check all the YAML files are okay. And the others, right? Talk about them as we go along. Now, let's start with Flake 8. I guess everyone is more familiar with Flake 8, right? Flake 8. Yeah, so it's just an easy checked item. It's like ESLint for JavaScript, right? Just make sure that your code makes sense semantically or syntactically. Right? So it may not catch much, especially I know everyone here is a good developer, right? So you won't make mistakes that a linter would catch, or even anyone uses VS Code or PyCharm, it'll already catch that. So no problem. But when it does catch something, though, you'll be grateful you had it. Next, we have isort. Anyone here uses isort? Still, this table. What the hell, guys? Recruit these guys, huh? Okay. So I don't know in your code reviews, but I've seen a lot in my years of working. I've seen a lot of code reviews where the nitpick is just, hey, you know what? This import should be on line 3, right? From line 10 to line 3. Like, come on, it's 2024, right? We should stop with this and let pre-commit to it. Next is black. Anyone here uses black? There we go, much more people, right? So I guess this is a lot more common than it used to be, right? This is one of the most contentious thing we had to do in BillEase. We've been using black, by the way, from about a couple of years ago, right, Jasper? Yeah, a couple of years ago now. We were using black even before it reached stable, right? And is anyone also using like prettier for JavaScript? It's really just a styler, right? It just makes your code, well, pretty. This is the pretty part of coding, right? So the only problem with black, why I mentioned that it's contentious, is that, and I'm sorry guys to all of you who already knows what black is, but for everyone who doesn't know, Black has a lot of opinionated rules, right? So for example, when you're writing a string in Python, everyone's used to writing it with single quotes, yes? Right? In Black, no. Okay, in Black you write it with double quotes. Okay, that's just one. Another one, with regards to line length, I don't know if you're working with Vim or you're used to like your editor setting your columns for you, right? By default, that's 80, right? For Black, it's not 80, it's 88, right? 10% more than 80. Why? Why not, right? So Black is notoriously known for having these decisions, and a lot of them are unconfigurable, right? So when I brought this to my team, right, when I talked to Jasper, Jasper is, by the way, our very handsome panelist over there. When I brought this to Jasper and I told him that, hey, dude, we have to do something like this in BillEase, right? Our team is growing and we need consistency in our code, right? And he complained. He complained. He said, why should I use this? Like he tested a lot of code snippets, and we would go back and forth in our DMs, and he would show me screenshots of Black formatting some of the code very weirdly. And all I had to say to that was, well, then it'll be consistently weird then. And well, long story short, I won him over, and we're now using Black. Right? But all jokes aside though, the main point of Black is, aside from making it pretty, is that it reduces the size of your Git diff, right? So if when you go to review the code, instead of taking, I don't know, a couple of lines because of all the new lines that you keep using, it tries to reduce that. So as a reviewer, it should make your life better. Next, we have MyPy. I heard this talked about earlier in one of the speeches. Right? How many here uses MyPy? I don't expect a lot of again, these peoples. Right, okay. So, type hints. Anyone using type hints at all MyPy or no MyPy in Python? Anyone? Okay, a bit more people. Did you know that type hints in Python only came about in Python 3.5? Yeah, it's relatively new-ish. So it's not even actively used, like as evidenced by the people raising their hands. While I've spoken a lot of developers about their usage of type hints, and some who actually have heard of it, fewer actually used it, and majority haven't heard of it, like MyPy itself, right? So here in BillEase, if you do want to work with us, for example, we actually believe that MyPy, or type hints, should be enforced. Okay, enforced, not whenever you want to, right? You may be able to tell this already because we're using Fast API, right? Fast API is tightly coupled with Pydantic, right? By the way, BillEase is a contributor of Pydantic. Please star them, right? Since Pydantic is already there, and it's like it's a first-class citizen, type hints, or a first-class citizen in Fast API, we believe, why shouldn't this be enforced then? Why do some methods have type hints? Why do some don't? Why do some have correct return signatures? Some don't. It helps you, right? And we found that as we enforce this, it becomes a self-code reviewer, right? Because your IDE checks this for you, right? Whenever you write a method and you write the return signature and you call that method in another file and you wrote the wrong, you returned the wrong data type, it'll say you're wrong, or it'll say that something's wrong here. But that's just your IDE, right? With MyPy, you can't even commit it, which is what we want, right? We don't want code that is not properly protected or type hinted to even make it to a commit, right? So, next brings us to testing. Now, okay, I know, I'll just breeze through testing real quick because, yeah, like I mentioned, there's already a lot of talks about testing. But I firmly believe, and I hope the rest of my team really believes, that if you don't have fun testing means nothing. Because you won't do it. How many here have fun writing tests? Really? Really? You're having fun writing tests? Yeah. How confident are you that your tests actually test what it says it should test? Okay, no hands there. All right, okay. Oops. Okay. All right, so actually, I've always wanted to do this. Again, one more raise of hands. How many here does any kind of testing, like automated, right? So either unit test, integration testing, or end-to-end. Keep those hands up. Any kind of testing. End-to-end Postman, right? Integration, unit. Okay, keep those hands up, all right? Now, for those doing those kinds of tests, end-to-end integration unit, how many of you actually checks code coverage? Okay, all right, about the same. All right, so for those who do use code coverage, how many have reached 100%? All right, there we go. But do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's worth it? Does it actually have any value if you reach 100%? It looks good in your GitHub README, right? It says 100% code coverage, but does it actually bring any value? That's what I want to talk about really in this testing part, okay? Okay, and finally, so I think a lot of you guys here are already working, I presume. There's some students, but a lot of you are working. How many of you are actually happy, and please don't lie, I won't tell if you won't, how many of you are happy with the state of developer written tests in your company right now? Like the way your company does testing right now, how happy are you with it? Like the developer written tests, not QA, developer written tests. Okay. Happy to see BillEase folks raising their hands. So there's loads of articles already around that espouses different approaches to testing, right? So I won't go over much of these. I'll just go straight into how we do it in BillEase. Right? And maybe you learn something, maybe you like what you see, and maybe, again, you want to join us for that, okay? So, what does testing as a first-class citizen in a company or a team look like? Okay? So, in BillEase, we found that tests need to support 3 main workflows, okay? So, this can be a workflow whether you're new to the team or you're an existing developer and you're developing another microservice that you're used to working on, right? Number 1, do you need to see how current APIs work and see sample responses? Look at a test. It should be possible to look at a test and see how the shit works, right? Need to add a new endpoint and need to see if it's working. But if this is your task, right? Add the simple get endpoint, right? Write a test. Okay? No more finagling with Postman, running your app, installing every dependency, just write a test. Okay? And finally, the last workflow, does your build even run? Right? Embarrassingly, we've had this happen a couple of times. Thankfully, still in local, right? When we actually ran the thing that we're confident we built, wasn't even running, right? I think with Flask, it's like Flask run, or with Fast API, it's like UVcorn something, right? And it doesn't run, right? But your test can see this immediately, okay? So with these 3 workflows, we've basically bamboozled ourselves in doing TDD, right? It's just TDD, right, with extra steps, right? So how exactly did we do this? First, we start with talks. Anyone familiar with talks? Talks is a very old school framework, right? This is very popular with libraries, with Python libraries, because this talks allows them to spin up visual environments per Python environment. So you can see this is an actual talks ini file, sanitized for you guys. Here we use in BillEase. So you see in here we use Python 3.9. And we specify the dependencies. You see the dependency is just tests because it's just for testing. And the commands. So in commands, you can see here we run the pre-commit, runs every test that we have, run the actual PyTest and generate coverage. That's it, right? So basically, when you get a new repo, you just run talks, just type TOX, that's it. Our CI pipeline is basically just pip install talks, that's it. No more installing dependencies, no more nothing, just talks, okay? Next PyTest, I want to show you guys an actual test that we in BillEase run, right? I actually been asking a few guys here how they do testing in their company because I'm really, really curious how other companies approach this, right? Because you always hear from like YouTubers or like code influencers how, how important it is to like really test your code. But how does that look like in practice? Like you've been working already for 8, 10 years in your company. Your boss keeps telling you, hey, please push this. I need this yesterday. How do you do it? How do you still have fun? And how can you still be confident in your test? So this is what I want to show, okay? So please look at this drawing here. I had someone else draw it, so if you have any negative complaints about the drawing, I'll forward it to her. Okay, so this is a sample feature. This is actually modeled at an actual feature right now in BillEase that we use. So BillEase people, this should be very familiar to you guys. Okay, so this is the feature. I'll explain it real quick, and then we'll go over the test and how to test this. All right. So let's start with M1 right there at the file. You can see there's a M1. That's a file. Right? It goes to an AWS S3 bucket. Everyone familiar here with S3 buckets, right? And then after the file goes to the bucket, there's a notification receipt that goes to SQS, simple queue service for AWS. Just a queuing system. I hope everyone is also familiar with this. And then we have a consumer, that Pac-Man over there. And that consumer consumes the SQS, gets the message, right? And since the message contains the receipt ID of the file, it can download it from the bucket. Right? After it downloads the bucket, it does some business logic there that our CEO asked us to do, and then insert that to the database. That's it. Simple. Right? Now, before I show how we tested this, how would you test this? This is all back-end, by the way, as you can see, right? There's no API to be called. It's just a consumer that you need to run. How will you test this? Okay, how many, I've given you like 10 seconds to think. How many of you do you think that it's easy to test? How many thinks it's hard? Okay, and even if you do test it, to be the most confident about your test, you do it manually, right? I presume some of you would actually go to AWS, create an account, right? Set up all these, the bucket, the SQS, whatever, run your consumer locally, test it, right? Well, what if there's a better way? Okay, let's see. So this is an actual test file that we have in BillEase. We'll just go through it real quick, also sanitized for your viewing pleasure. Let's start with the imports. Okay, this is the imports that we have for this test file. A lot of it is quite common, except some of the libraries here, okay? You might have seen a lot of them, but I think the most exotic here are responses, freeze gun, moto, and syrupy. Any one of you guys heard about these libraries? Okay, quite exotic, okay. Now, let's go with the fixtures. Everyone is familiar with PyTest fixtures, I hope. Here we define two fixtures. Right? We have a Boto3 client. Boto3, by the way, if you didn't know, this is the official client of AWS in Python to interface with their resources. Okay, so we have two PyTest fixtures here. We have the SQS client and we have the S3 client. And if you've built any integration with AWS before, you'd know the way you write this, the S3 and the SQS client, this is actually how you write the client in your code. So this mirrors the actual code that you need to write. Okay? So, real quick, again, a free desk mat if you can answer. Does everyone know why this is yield and not return? Free desk mat. No one from BillEase? Okay, good. Right, okay, sorry, it's yield just because this is PyTest, right? So PyTest fixtures are divided into three parts: the setup, the main fixture, and the teardown. The yield is used as a divider between the setup and the teardown. So if you have any teardown that you need to do, you write it after the yield. Fun fact. Now, so for the actual test itself, let's start, right? So we have the test name. It just should check something after consuming from SQS and downloading from S3. As you can see, the actual test name itself is quite behavioral, right? This is what your boss would have you do, right? Does it actually check something after consuming blah, blah, blah? So that's why we use it as the actual test name. And as you can see, we have 3 decorators there. We have the Moto SQS, mock S3, and we activate a thing called responses, right? And we have a few more fixtures here, not that important. Just know that the payloads here are just simple dictionaries, and you can easily know that because they have type hints, right? Okay. So let's move on to setup. So again, tests are divided into 3 things, right? For fixtures, that's setup, your fixture and the teardown. For actual tests, that's the setup, test execution, and what's the last one? Assertion, right? Okay, that's the 3rd one, in case you forgot. Okay, so as you can see, we add a response. So this means that we're expecting an API call for this API. Okay, that's what responses do. It mocks your requests library, okay? Next, look at this. Right? This is the most interesting part here, right? We create a queue, an SQS queue, okay? And the best part of this is it doesn't need to call AWS. This Moto is a complete mock of Boto. So whatever code you write in Boto, it should work as an interface with Moto. You want to create a queue? Write the same code. Want to create a bucket? Write the same code. You need to upload something to the bucket? We do that right here. We need to send a message to the consumer? Write that there. So at this point, by line 72, we should already have setup done. So the only thing left to do is to run our consumer right here, right? So you can see line 79, we initiate a class called SQS consumer, okay? And we just make a few more mocks here because we publish business events and stuff like that. So we just mock that, and then we just run it, right? That's the only test. We just run the consumer. This is exactly how your consumer would run, okay? And one last thing to note here is the freeze time. Anyone ever used freeze time here before? No one? This is a very powerful library that we use quite a lot in BillEase, right? Especially if your service is time sensitive. What does that mean? Like a week from now or a year from now, something must be changed when your API calls it. So with this one, as you can see, we have a with block, right? So we freeze time to this point, and then we move to 1 week from now, and then we check the API. That's how we test time travel. Right? Very cool. Okay, so, and then for the last part of our test, it's just assertions, right? So as you can see, the only thing important here is the snapshots, right? Anyone does snapshotting in their tests? This is quite a lot used in JavaScript or in front end, right? Because they want to see what the HTML code looks like, and they save that into a file, and every time that changes, they compare it against. That's why we have snapshot. So we snapshot 2 things. The message that the Pac-Man consumer saved into the DB. So every time we run the test, that should be the same. And then the response of check something. We just make sure. Okay? And that's it. And then you can run this test every time. This is not flaky. Right? It does not rely on any external integrations. You can run it again and again. It's quite fast. No expensive setup or teardown. And that's it. So I'll go real quick. I don't think I have much time. One thing I want to talk about is coverage. Like I mentioned coverage before, right? That whether it's actually important or not. So basically in BillEase, I get it, right? It's hard to maintain 100%. For example, this is a sample coverage report. As you can see, the coverage here is 100%. Right? And all green, all happy, but this is not the reality in our world, right? As you develop in the real world, there will always be some gaps in your coverage. So what does that look like? Look at this one. You might say that just put a realistic coverage threshold instead, right? Like we can't reach 100%. Why not set it to 75, 70? right? And just be happy with it. But we say no, especially for new services. Why? Having 100% coverage makes sure that every branch in your code is actually covered. So what does that look like? Look at this. How should we approach coverage to maximize testing, right? Look at this one. It says the coverage is 98%. We have an except block, right, that's uncovered. This is quite common, right, because when you start testing, it's only mostly happy passes. And you miss the negative cases, which are excepts, right? So very, very important to cover those, okay? And lastly, along with try except, what other block do you think gets skipped by coverage? Again, free desk mat. So you know the first one is try except. What's the next one? Next one is if else, right? Just an if else, right? Because everyone or most stuff go through if, right? And then if it doesn't, write a test for it. Okay, and last part of my speech, the upkeep, right? I'll just go really, really quick through this. Sorry. So first of all, I lied. Sorry, Mickey, are you here? Don't hate me, please. But there is one mention of AI in this talk. This is CodeRabbit. So we use CodeRabbit in BillEase. Any developer that actually this is required. Any MR or PR you write needs to go through CodeRabbit. It just uses ChatGPT to review your code. That's what it looks like, right? So again, another important part of developer experience, right? Right, and then we also use Renovate. Anyone familiar here with Renovate? So as I mentioned earlier, how can we be versatile in moving between Python versions or package versions? So we have Renovate do that, right? It's a scheduled task that runs every midnight. We just use GitLab for it, and it looks like this. It creates an MR. Right, we use GitLab, by the way. We're not elitists like GitHub users. Yeah, so it creates an MR, and mostly this is automatic, right? It runs our pipeline if again, our coverage is 100%. So if that passes, we're quite confident. So Renovate auto merges that. If it's a major change, though, then we need developer intervention. So as you can see here, there's a major change to PyTest v8, so it's not automatically merged, okay? We also use osv.dev for any vulnerabilities. Okay, this is linked to our Renovate as well. So this is what it looks like. This is a vulnerability database. Very important for a fintech, by the way, to catch these vulnerabilities. So as you can see, PyPy over there with 11,000. It's a lot, but it's nothing like NPM. Right? No hate to JavaScript, but it always takes the cake when it comes to vulnerabilities. And as you can see earlier, our commit looks, it follows a certain format, right? You can see in the earlier slide, we follow conventional commits here in BillEase. This is the format. You can just look it up online if you want to. So this is a sample commit that we use. As you can see, feat, the type of commit, PyCon, the subject, and the imperative scope, imperative description, which is write speech, the long description, and finally the task ID in whatever project management tool that you have. For example, this one, TS1119. Yeah, this is what we use in BillEase, and coincidentally, not that I intended it, it's also our CEO's birthday. And then you might say maintaining those commits is quite hard. We use Commitisn to do that for us. This is an interactive CLI tool that we use to make the commits for us. It's just, you can see here, you just choose what commit and then you go for it, right? We're also a contributor of Commitisn, by the way, so please star them as well. And finally, again, sorry, this is the last one. Why we use that is not just for pretty commits, right? It's mostly for semantic release because we follow Semver. This is an actual release that looks like this is automatically generated by semantic release, so we don't deal with that manually. All this is automatically generated. If you go to our microservice, look at the changelog, you get these, right? And yeah, so in summary, all those 5, I'm out of time. So if you want more summary, just go talk to me directly. And finally, yeah, if you need the slides, just go to my website, should be the first hit in the post there, and you can download the slides along with my speech, right? It's not just slides, it's also written words over there. And if you want to talk about anything that I said, just reach out to me. I'll be here all day and tomorrow. And I hope you guys learned something, anything from this talk, and it made you, even if a little bit, it made you want to join BillEase. Yes? Please say yes, because say yes, please, louder. Yes. Thank you, thank you. This is very important because it's the only way to convince our CEO that it's worth it to sponsor this event. So thank you, guys. Thank you for saying yes.
How do you approach balancing the needs of developers with other stakeholder requirements, at least in BillEase?
Sorry, do I understand that correctly? How do we approach bugs?
No. How do you approach balancing the needs of developers versus the needs of the stakeholders?
Yeah. It's actually it's a good question actually, since we're a finance company, right? And we until recently we're just a startup, right? So it's very important for us to move fast, okay? And well, if you ask any PM, I'm sorry, Chi. It's our PM here. If you ask any PM, they will always tell you to prioritize pushing delivery, you know, and at the same time, someone needs to say, hey, look, we got to do this better, right? Or at least they have to do this in a way that that's still fun, right? You know, because if you're not having fun developing, then why are you even doing it, you know? So how do we balance it? Basically, if they give a task, and again, this is mostly from our startup days, right? We make sure first that the tooling is available, right? You saw our repository earlier, right? Those are actually in a boilerplate already, right? So when there's a new dev that comes in, they just clone that boilerplate and just adapt it to the service that they need. That is very, very important because as developers, we look at examples, right? When we're developing new code or we're asked to develop new code, we search first. How did someone else do this before, right? Then we look at that and we basically copy shit, right? We put that in our new code and just make some few changes here. And yeah, it's basically your English homework from high school, right? You copy it and change a few words here and there. And yeah, so that's how we do it. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Alec.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Alex. For a moment, everyone, I would like to ask everyone to kindly settle down a bit because we will be having a Q&A with Mr. Alec Gerona. Thank you for your cooperation, and I think we are ready for the next question. Go ahead.
So hi, Alec. So I just have a question about your...
Louder, please.
I just have a question about the developer tools that you're using. So you mentioned in the directory or in the file structure for your project that you have a requirements folder, right? And you have 3 files on there. It is requirements.txt, one for the developer or the development tools, and another one for the tests. Are you using just pip to install those dependencies, or are you using any other tool for that?
Sorry, you mean pip? PIP?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I don't know why I didn't include this in the talk earlier, but basically in our, as a day-to-day in our developer, right, we rarely install dependencies.
Yeah.
Rarely at all, right? Like the act of like doing pip install is rare, right? We often only do this if we're debugging something that's quite weird, right? Or we need the dependencies to help us in our IDE, right? Because your IDE usually complains that your dependencies are not installed, right? So aside from those, it's mostly just pip install tox, TOX, just run tox. That's it.
Yeah, but I believe when my understanding is that you have continuous integration set up,
yes,
right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
And what is sort of like the I guess statistics like for like how long does the dependency or the environment setup take in that like CI environment?
How long is the CI running for?
Yeah,
Is that the
like
question?
the installation step, or
Right.
pretty much just setting up the environment.
Yeah, so if you go look at our GitLab CI file, right,
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, it's literally just 2 lines, just pip install talks and talks, right? And I don't know if I was clear earlier, but that was actually an integration test, right? You might be confused to think that it's unit because a lot of it was mocked, which it was. We mocked RabbitMQ, we mocked AWS. What was the integration part? The integration part there was actually the database. Yeah, I don't have my slides right now, but if you saw earlier in the definition of the method, right, the first argument there was session, right? And it's a fixture that sets up our database.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sets up, tears down at the end. Basically, create the schema, insert everything that's needed, and tear everything down. Okay, and depending on the service, which is in average, takes us what, 2 minutes, 30 seconds for everything.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so for my final question, so you've mentioned a lot of tools.
A lot
in
of
these
tools,
slides,
yeah.
So do you think that if a language were to come with all of these tools integrated, it would be less expensive to transition into that language for like future solutions rather than keep up with all of these tools within sort of like the Python ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if that's apparent, but with the way we approach all these tools, right? Again, like I mentioned earlier in the talk, when we see a new tool and then we see that, hey, you know what, this is interesting,
Yeah.
right? Why don't we use this? And then Jasper comes at me and say, no, this is why not, right? And this is often the back and forth that we go through, right? Trying to decide whether this new exciting tool is actually worth it or not. In this case, since we are still actually a bank, right? We still need to have that stability, right? And I have a hard time thinking of an alternative that'll come up and suddenly make us think twice. And you know what? Maybe we should try this, like Rust. No way. Too unstable, at least for us. I think the only language that might make us think twice, and don't quote me on this, by the way, don't record this, but it may be Go, okay? Maybe.
Maybe.
All right, big maybe, but that's it, yeah.
All right, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we no longer have any time for follow-up questions. We'll be keeping the questions to those who have already lined up here. No, you can still ask your questions, sir. I'm just saying no follow-ups. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, hello. Thank you for the time. Sorry. First question, ano pong favorite number niya sa electric fan?
Sorry,
I'm kidding,
what?
I'm kidding.
What's the question?
No, I'm sorry. Here's the question. Okay, for unit testing, or for testing in general,
Yeah.
how do you exactly maintain 100% code coverage? Because there's like, because I know like in unit tests, there are certain tests where you need a certain environment, right? So how do you replicate or mock that environment so that it becomes 100% code coverage?
Right. So, okay, I'm gonna say right out of the gate that of course there are some code blocks that we ignore. It's inevitable.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There are some things that you ignore. Usually these are fluff code.
Yeah.
That just performative, but sorry. That it just exists there for it to work, but it's not really business logic important. Right? There are some code like that, and we ignore those.
Yeah, okay.
So for those that we don't ignore, you already saw how we did it. Right? So for example, for AWS, we find a way to either integrate it or to mock it like to that level, not just mock to the either, right? But actually a mock integration, right? I'll give you another example. So people here have heard of Redis, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
mentioned earlier that we use Postgres. We use Postgres as our DB, right? And it's an integration test. So we actually spin up a Postgres.
Yeah.
If needed, we can also spin up a Redis, and this also happens in our CI. So we can test inserts, selects, whatever, as you would in your actual code. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Unfortunately, that's as much time as we have for the live questions, but I'll be closing this Q&A with a question that is more company related, if you don't mind. As I have mentioned backstage earlier, I actually work for a competitor company, and you do have a booth there. I've been checking it out, and so has our other audiences as well that may be interested. So the question is, for those who are interested, why BillEase?
Okay, so very good question. Thank you for bringing it up. Okay, so number one with BillEase, and this is a guarantee. In this one, you can quote me. Okay, in BillEase, it is work from home forever. We will never ever make you go back into hybrid, full time. Right? Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. If you go to work every day physically, I'm so sorry for you. Yeah, I'm really sorry, right? Yeah, we don't think, actually even our CEO, unfortunately he's not here anymore, even he's having the time of his life, right? He lives in a mansion, right, with pool in it, right? So no way is that guy going back to the office, right? Maybe once a week, like for or a meeting or two, like sprint planning maybe, or some catch-up meeting, but no way are we like gonna dedicate 2 days a week, right? No, it's just we found that our productivity has increased, right, in this model. So that's one. Number two, we have no micromanagement. Very, very important for us that each developer that we get. So despite our size and actually in our tenure, we're not that many actually. Our developers is just less than 50 given our tenure, right? And our volume, it's not that much, you know? Because we really try to focus on individual capacity, right? How well each developer can give to the team and to the company and grow by himself, you know? So we're not in a hurry of like, I don't know, outsourcing the other 70 to just fill up 100 and like do a lot of stuff, right? Here in BillEase, we really try to make sure that each one of you, if you join us, right, you have the space to explore, right, to have your voice be heard, right? So yeah, if all that sounds interesting for you, please apply. And you know, as a bonus, you get to work with Jasper, right? Again, our panelist over there, one of the most handsome guy I've ever met. Like seriously, right? He's a panelist in a few minutes. So, yeah.
And that is why BillEase. Now, everyone, please give a round of applause for Alec and BillEase.